The gold-trimmed envelope lay on the cluttered kitchen counter like a grenade in a velvet box. Sophia Bennett, 40, stopped mid-step, her grocery bags still slung over one shoulder, the weight of them grounding her as her heart lurched. The calligraphy was too flawless, the paper too luxurious, a silent declaration of wealth and exclusion. No return address. But Sophia didn't need one. Only her sister, Abigail Thornton, would send something this brazenly ostentatious. Her stomach knotted, a reflex sharpened by years of being the afterthought in her own family. The one left out of the frame. She slid a butter knife under the flap, careful not to tear the delicate paper, as if preserving it could soften the blow she knew was coming. Inside, an ivory card gleamed with embossed script. You are cordially invited to the celebration of the union of Abigail Thornton and Michael Caldwell. Below, in smaller font, it read, to the family of Margaret Thornton. Not Sophia, not her 14-year-old son, Noah, just a vague nod to their existence. As if they were strangers borrowing her mother's name. She flipped the card over twice, her fingers trembling as she searched for an RSVP slip. For any trace of their names. Nothing. 8 years since Abigail's last contact, always filtered through their mother. Margaret, and this was her gesture. An invitation that didn't even acknowledge them. Noah burst through the door, his backpack hitting the couch with a thud that echoed in the quiet Greenville kitchen. Mom, you got mail? He called, already raiding the fridge, his sneakers scuffing the linoleum. Sophia slid the card under a pile of bills, electric, medical, grocery ads, her hands moving faster than her thoughts. Just some wedding stuff, she said, her voice steadier than the ache in her chest. Whose? Noah asked, popping open a root beer, the fizz hissing in the silence. Your Aunt Abigail's. He paused, his dark eyes flickering with a spark of curiosity. Maybe hope. We going? Sophia's fingers tightened on the counter's edge, the chipped formica biting into her palm. You want to? Noah shrugged, closing the fridge with his shoulder, his lanky frame slouching in that teenage way that hid his thoughts. I mean, I haven't seen Grandma or anybody in forever. Could be cool. And just like that, the decision wasn't hers anymore. She nodded, though every instinct screamed to stay home, to avoid the stage where she'd never been cast as anything but an extra. 2 weeks later, Sophia drove 4 hours from Greenville to Charleston, South Carolina, the highway stretching out like a ribbon of dread. Noah dozed in the passenger seat, his earbuds dangling, the faint hum of his music mixing with the hum of the tires. Boone Hall Plantation came into view, a southern postcard of moss-draped oaks and a white-columned mansion that felt like it belonged to someone else's history, a history that had never included Sophia. The sun was dipping low, casting long, symmetrical shadows across the gravel lot as they pulled in. Sophia's chest tightened, her hands gripping the steering wheel a moment too long. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a performance, and she already knew her role was in the wings, not the spotlight. At the welcome table, a young woman in a sleek black dress held a clipboard, her smile as polished as the silverware glinting in the fading light. Name? She asked, her pen hovering. Sophia Bennett and my son, Noah. The smile faltered, just for a heartbeat, before the woman walked off, weaving through a sea of guests in pastel sundresses and champagne-colored suits. Noah tugged at his shirt collar, one Sophia had ironed that morning until it was crisp, his teenage awkwardness betraying his attempt to look unbothered. Do we not have seats? He whispered, his voice barely audible over the chatter. The woman returned, her smile tighter, almost apologetic, and led them to a guest chart displayed on an easel. She pointed to a card halfway down, janitorial volunteer, Bennett, S., and guest. Sophia's breath caught, a sharp sting in her throat. She scanned the chart, no other label was wrong, each name meticulously correct. Oh, sorry, the woman said, her words too quick, too practiced. Must be a printing mix-up. I'm sure it wasn't intentional. But Sophia knew better. She'd always known when the slight was deliberate, when the knife was hidden in a smile. They were guided to a table at the far edge of the garden, tucked near the sound booth, where the hum of electronics drowned out the elegance of the main tables. Plastic place settings sat in stark contrast to the gold-edged china elsewhere. And a folded paper program listed the evening's timeline but omitted their names. Noah stayed quiet, folding his napkin with deliberate care, his fingers moving as if to anchor himself, to disappear into the creases. Sophia whispered to herself, "One night, don't make it about you." But the sting didn't fade, it pulsed beneath her ribs. Sharp and relentless, fed by every laugh from the main tables, where personalized menus and gilded cards marked everyone else's belonging. The reception hall was a vision from a bridal magazine. A cathedral of wealth with vaulted ceilings, cascading white drapery, and floral arrangements that screamed privilege. Sophia slowed as she entered, her eyes scanning the rows of tables for their names. Hers was tucked near a service entrance, far from the center, where waitstaff slipped in and out with trays of shrimp skewers. No's was worse, a few steps away at a table labeled, "Young Guests," strewn with crayons, juice boxes, and activity sheets. A small card in the center read, "Noah Bennett." Her stomach dropped, a cold weight settling in her core. Noah stood beside her, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his shoulders hunched to hide his disappointment. A little girl in pigtails was already scribbling next to his assigned seat, her crayons rolling across the cloth. Sophia flagged down a staff member with a headset, her voice calm despite the tremor in her chest. "Excuse me, there's a mix-up. My son's 14. The woman's smile was trained to deliver bad news with polish. "Oh, I see. Abigail requested he be placed here. Said he's still in middle school. Most teens are with their parents or at the junior adult table. But I can check for space." Sophia shook her head, her throat tight. "It's fine." Noah didn't speak. He walked to the table, pulled out a tiny chair meant for a child, and sat, staring at his folded napkin like it held answers to questions he wasn't ready to ask. Sophia knelt beside him, her hand hovering near his shoulder. "Want to sit with me?" He forced a half smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm okay, Mom." But his gaze stayed fixed on the table, avoiding hers. Back at her table, Sophia focused on anything else, the precise folds of the napkin, the condensation beading on her water glass, anything to avoid watching Noah sit among kids who still needed help cutting their chicken. It wasn't a mistake, it was calculated, subtle, and cruel, a quiet way to remind her she didn't belong. An usher passed with wristbands for guest access. Sophia received a plain silver one, while others slipped on gold bands, some engraved with names in delicate script. She approached an attendant near the ballroom, her voice steady. "My son's over there. I'd like to take him to the family wing for photos." The man glanced at her wrist, his expression blank. "Silver's for reception only. Family wing's gold." No apology, just protocol. Sophia bit the inside of her cheek until it ached, forcing a smile. Of course. She guided Noah to the garden's edge, where the laughter from the main hall drifted like a taunt, mingling with the click of camera flashes and the clink of champagne glasses. On a side table sat gift bags, each labeled with a guest's name. Hers, marked Sophia, was light, empty except for a single spa coupon, the kind you'd find in a gas station magazine. The bag next to it, for a cousin, bulged with monogrammed napkins, a keychain, and a handwritten note. Noah reached into his own bag, pulled out a coloring book, and handed it to a younger kid nearby without a word. His face wasn't angry, just tired, the kind of tired that comes from carrying a weight too heavy for 14 years. Sophia's hands trembled, but she swallowed the heat rising in her throat. "Don't react. You promised to be gracious." Her father, gone for a decade, would have stormed the stage, said too much, made a scene, but this wasn't his fight. It was hers, quiet and careful, a battle fought in whispers and restraint. Then Abigail made her entrance, gliding down the grand staircase in their mother's wedding dress, preserved in a cedar chest Sophia once believed was promised to her. The crowd erupted in applause, phones flashing, laughter rising like a tide. No one noticed the woman in the corner or the boy at the children's table. Sophia's chest ached, not with jealousy, but with betrayal, cloaked in ivory lace and stitched in silence. Her mother, Margaret, appeared beside her, hands clasped like she was at a funeral. Not a wedding. Doesn't she look radiant? Margaret whispered, her voice soft with pride. She earned that dress. Sophia didn't respond. She bit her cheek until it throbbed. A memory surfacing unbidden. Her at 18. Standing barefoot in the living room as Margaret lifted the gown from its chest. The lace soft under her fingers. One day, Margaret had said, "This will be yours, if you care for it like I did." Sophia never asked for it again, assuming it was tucked away. Forgotten. Now, tailored to Abigail's frame. It was clear, it hadn't been forgotten. It had been reassigned. A quiet theft dressed in tradition. Sophia slipped outside, needing air. The garden path was lit by low lanterns, the dusk softening the edges of her pain. She wandered to a hedge where roses bloomed without effort, their scent grounding her as her thoughts spiraled. Margaret's voice broke the quiet. "You always disappear when things get tough," she said, her tone polite but sharp. A blade wrapped in velvet. "I just needed a moment," Sophia replied, her voice low. Margaret stepped closer, her pearls glinting in the lantern light. "Don't start something tonight, Sophia. This is Abigail's day. Let it be hers." Sophia turned, her eyes steady. "Did you know about the dress? The photos? All of it?" Margaret looked away, her gaze drifting to the roses. "Some things are better left behind. Be the bigger person." That phrase again, the one that demanded women swallow pain like it was a virtue. Absorb betrayal to keep the peace. Sophia's voice hardened, though it stayed quiet. "I helped her pick that dress. I was there when she cried about the itchy sleeves." "You weren't." Margaret's response was soft but final. Like a door closing. "That doesn't matter now. Don't make people uncomfortable." Sophia wanted to scream that this family needs honesty. But Margaret was already walking away, her heels clicking on the stone path. Alone by the roses, Sophia pulled out her phone and opened the voice memo app. She hit record, capturing the distant laughter, the clinking glasses, and, faintly, Abigail's voice, sharp and careless. "Sophia won't do anything. She never does. That's her thing. She silences herself." Sophia's hands trembled, not with rage but with the weight of holding it back. Noah appeared, holding 2 dessert cups, chocolate mousse and lemon tart. Their spoons clinking softly. "Thought you'd want one," he said, his voice quiet but steady. They sat on a stone bench, the wind stirring the leaves, the lanterns swaying above. "That dress wasn't just lace," Sophia murmured, more to herself than to him. It was acknowledgement. Noah didn't pretend to understand fully, but his eyes searched hers, seeing the hurt she'd tried to hide. "You're not ready, are you?" he asked softly, his voice barely above the breeze. She nodded, her throat burning, tears pricking at the edges of her eyes. The transition to gift acknowledgements was seamless, the MC's voice chirping through the hall like a rehearsed script. Abigail took the stage, glowing under a floral arch of white hydrangeas and string lights, her mother's dress shimmering with cruel elegance. She thanked old teachers, sorority sisters, distant cousins, her voice smooth as satin. Each name met with warm applause. Then she held up a small velvet box, lifting a delicate necklace that caught the chandelier's light. "This was my mother's," she said, her smile practiced. "I'm so grateful to Aunt Evelyn for returning this precious heirloom. It means more than words can say." The crowd clapped, a wave of approval washing over the room. Sophia froze, her heart slowing as if her body knew something her mind was still catching up to. She'd found that necklace months ago, buried in their old basement, wrapped in tissue paper. She'd sent it to Abigail through Margaret, tucked with a handwritten note. "May this remind you who we come from, and that not all things forgotten are lost." She'd trusted it would be a private gesture, a bridge between sisters. Now, it was credited to Evelyn, an aunt who hadn't seen Abigail since she was a child. The betrayal wasn't loud, it was quiet, deliberate, a theft disguised as gratitude. Later, near the coat room, Sophia nearly bumped into Aunt Clara, her lipstick smudged, her shawl clutched like a shield. "Did you see the gift segment?" Sophia asked, her voice calm but edged with steel. Clara's eyes darted away, then back, her face betraying her discomfort. "I know you sent that necklace," she admitted, her voice low. Margaret took out your note. Said it was too sentimental. Wouldn't play well with the crowd. Told Abigail to credit Evelyn instead. Sophia's face stayed still, but her heart pounded. Why didn't you say anything? Clara's gaze dropped to the floor tiles. Her shoulders slumping. I'm on the deed for the family lake house. Margaret made that clear. Silence for security. Complicity for comfort. Sophia didn't respond. She walked away. Her steps measured. Her breath shallow. Dinner service began. The clatter of silverware and polite laughter filling the hall. Servers glided between tables, placing plates of seared salmon and roasted asparagus before guests who'd never had to earn their place in rooms like this. Sophia and Noah ate in silence. Their plates nearly empty when a planner approached. Her hair slicked into a tight bun. Her head set snug. Hi, Miss Bennett, she said, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. Abigail mentioned you've done event work. There's a small spill near the back corner. A quick towel situation. Could you help? The request was dressed as a favor. Polite and optional, but her eyes said it wasn't. Sophia stood, her hands curling at her sides. Of course. Noah looked up from his plate. His fork pausing. His dark eyes narrowing. She offered a smile, like it was nothing, but her knuckles whitened as she followed the planner to a linen closet. She was handed a towel and directed to a table leg where a half glass of Pinot Noir had dribbled, staining the cloth. As she knelt to wipe it, she felt the eyes, subtle, not cruel, but heavy with smug curiosity. A woman at the next table nudged her husband, tilting her chin toward Sophia. Another guest glanced over, then away, then back, her lips twitching with something that wasn't quite pity. Sophia returned to her table, her jaw tight. But she hadn't sat for 10 seconds before another planner appeared. Her tone identical. Hi, sorry. The dessert table by the fountain shifted during setup. Could you realign the platters? Just a quick fix. Noah's fork froze midair, his shoulders tensing. I'll take care of it, Sophia said, rising again, her voice calm but her heart racing. She adjusted a tray of petite fours, their delicate frosting gleaming under the lights. As a man in a navy suit called out, "Thanks, sweetheart. You've got a great eye for the details." The words landed like a slap. Casual but sharp. And Sophia felt her jaw clench so tightly it echoed in her ears. She turned to see Noah, 10 feet away, carrying a small tray of desserts. His face set with determination. As if trying to prove something. To bridge a gap she'd never wanted him to feel. Then it happened. Noah's foot caught the edge of a draped extension cord, carelessly tossed across the floor. The tray tilted, and a dozen miniature cakes launched into the air like poorly timed fireworks. One splattered onto a woman's silk shawl, leaving a smear of chocolate. Another hit a champagne flute, cracking it with a sharp ping. The room gasped, a collective intake of breath, then erupted in laughter, sharp, mocking, spreading like wildfire through dry grass. Above it all, Abigail's voice cut through, crystal clear and cruel. Guess he takes after his mom. The words sliced into Sophia. But it was Noah's face, flushed. His shoulders hunched as he knelt to pick up shards of porcelain with shaking hands. That broke something inside her. Sophia crossed the floor in 3 strides, kneeling beside him, her hand gentle over his. It's okay, Noah, she whispered. Let it be. She stood, her eyes locking onto Abigail, who sat with her arms folded, an untouched glass of wine gleaming in front of her like a prop. Next time you want something cleaned up, Sophia said, her voice steady and loud enough for the room to hear. Start with your character. The laughter died, replaced by an awkward silence. The band fumbled into a soft instrumental, notes stumbling over each other. Abigail opened her mouth, but no words came. Sophia returned to her table, Noah trailing behind, his head down. You didn't have to say that, he whispered, sitting. Yes, I did, she replied, her voice firm but soft. And I'm just getting started. She reached into her purse, her fingers brushing her phone. Still recording since dinner began, a quiet instinct she hadn't questioned. A lifeline she hadn't known she'd need. The lights dimmed for Abigail's final speech. A carefully curated performance under a halo of white hydrangeas and string lights. she glided onto the stage. Her mother's wedding dress shimmering with a cruel elegance that seemed to mock the room's warmth. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice smooth as satin. "Practiced to perfection. Tonight isn't just about love. It's about family, those who show up, who stay, who don't run when things get messy." A ripple of knowing chuckles passed through the crowd. Each laugh a needle in Sophia's skin. Abigail listed names. Uncle Henry for his mentorship. Aunt Lillian for the seating chart. Cousin Emily who flew in from Seattle. The room nodded, smiled, raised glasses and toasts. And to those who didn't run away when things got hard, Abigail added, her smile sharp. "Thank you. You've taught me what loyalty looks like." The words were a blade. Their omission the edge. She never said Sophia's name. Never glanced her way. The message was clear. Sophia wasn't part of this story. Noah's head turned, his dark eyes meeting Sophia's. His confusion hardening into something sharper, recognition. He saw it now. The way his mother's kindness, her silence, had been weaponized against her. Sophia's hand slid to her purse. Her fingers brushing her phone. Still recording every word, every laugh, every slight. She hadn't planned it. Not really. But something in her had known to capture this moment. This truth. The applause faded, and Abigail left the stage with a satisfied gleam in her eyes. Oblivious to the wound she'd carved in front of everyone. The MC, a man named Derek with a clipboard and a too-wide grin, took the stage. "All right, folks. Time for some special acknowledgements," he said, tapping the mic. "Let's give a big hand to the hearts behind this beautiful night." Guests clapped, chairs scraped, and groups shuffled toward the front for photos and applause. Derek squinted at his list. "And a special thanks to our cousin from out of state, Sophie," he said, mispronouncing her name, demoting her from sister to stranger. The slight landed like a stone in still water. Ripples of silence spreading through Sophia's chest. It wasn't the cruelest moment of the night, but it was the one that said the quiet part out loud. "You are not part of this story." Noah's head jerked toward her. His jaw clenched, his eyes blazing with a fire she hadn't seen before, not just hurt, but disbelief that no one stopped it. No one corrected it. Sophia stood, her hand resting lightly on the back of Noah's chair. She bent toward him, her voice low but steady. "We don't have to sit here and let them tell the story wrong." Noah looked up, his eyes wide for a moment, then narrowing with resolve. He nodded once, a silent agreement. "Then let's tell it ourselves," he said, his voice barely above a whisper but heavy with purpose. He didn't walk toward the exit. He walked toward the stage. The band stopped mid-measure, the notes hanging awkwardly in the air. The murmur of guests shifted from casual to confused, some chuckling, expecting a quirky wedding surprise. But Noah, 14 and steady as stone, stepped onto the stage, uninvited but unfazed. He reached for the microphone with a calm that belied his age, his hand trembling only slightly as he wrapped his fingers around the handle. Sophia stood frozen by their table, her breath caught somewhere between her chest and her throat, her heart pounding with a mix of pride and fear. "Excuse me," Noah said, his voice cracking for a split second before finding its rhythm. "Before we move on, I'd like to say a few words." Abigail turned, her face a mask of surprise, her groom leaning toward her with a whispered question. The room quieted, every eye on Noah, some puzzled, some amused, waiting for a punchline that wasn't coming. "I want to thank someone who hasn't been mentioned tonight," he said, his voice growing stronger with each word. "My mom, Sophia, for staying quiet when it hurt, for putting her head down even when it broke her. But she shouldn't have had to." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone, his fingers steady as he tapped the screen. A grainy recording crackled to life through the microphone, muffled at first by purse fabric and crowd noise, then sharpening into clarity. Abigail's voice, casual and sharp. "Sophia won't say anything. She never does. That's the thing about her, she silences herself." Then Margaret's, cold and cutting. "Sophia was always meant for the background. She doesn't know how to stay quiet with grace." Finally, Abigail again, her laugh like a blade. "She's not even family anymore." A seat was enough. A fork clattered loudly against a plate. A woman in the back whispered a curse. The room gasped. The air thick with shock. The kind that comes when truth rips through a carefully curated lie. Noah didn't flinch. He held the mic tighter, his eyes scanning the crowd of relatives and strangers who'd clapped for Abigail's version of the truth. Grandma said she was proud of one daughter. He continued, his voice steady but fierce. It wasn't my mom, but it should have been. She paid the deposit for this venue. Stayed up late emailing caterers. Handled vendor nightmares when no one else stepped up. She packed our things when we had to leave. Paid bills when the rest of you played savior. She showed me what strength looks like. You could hear nothing but breathing and the faint buzz of electricity in the speakers. Sophia's knees threatened to give way, her heart pounding with a pride so fierce it nearly broke her. She walked to the stage, her heels clicking against the tile like punctuation marks. Each step deliberate, unyielding. Noah's eyes widened for a moment, as if unsure whether he'd gone too far. But she nodded, a silent keep going. She took the microphone from him gently, her fingers steady despite the storm inside her. Let me be very clear, she said, her voice calm but cutting through the silence like a knife. You didn't just rewrite my story. You tried to erase it. She turned to Margaret, who sat stiffly, her hands clasped like she was bracing for a storm that had already landed. Shame isn't in silence. It's in cruelty. And I've swallowed enough of both for a lifetime. She faced the room, her gaze sweeping over the guests. Some shifting uncomfortably, others frozen. Let this be the last time someone's quiet is mistaken for guilt. Let this be the last time you reward someone for keeping the peace while bleeding underneath it. She didn't drop the microphone. She set it on the table beside her with care, its soft thunk against the wood louder than Abigail's entire speech. There was no applause, no music cue, just a room paralyzed by its own reflection. A woman 2 tables down stood, gathering her purse, her husband trailing behind. A cousin Sophia barely recognized averted his eyes, his wine glass forgotten. Abigail sat still, her groom whispering rapidly in her ear, her fingers trembling over her untouched wine glass. Margaret's face was unreadable, her hands still clasped, her lips pressed into a thin line. The lights remained dim, the band silent, the air heavy with the weight of truth. Sophia stepped down from the stage, finding Noah at the edge. He reached for her hand. Instinctive, like it had always been his compass. They didn't run, they walked out, their steps measured, their heads high, not as guests, not as family, but as the only ones who dared to speak the truth out loud. The garden path stretched before them, the lanterns casting soft pools of light, the night air cool against Sophia's skin. She felt lighter, not free yet, but unburdened, as if the weight of years of silence had begun to lift. Back in Greenville, Sophia opened every window in their small house, letting the stale air escape. The breeze carried the scent of pine and cut grass, a reminder of life beyond the suffocating walls of family expectations. She watered her neglected spider plant, its leaves curling but still green. A quiet survivor like her. She folded Noah's laundry, refilled his cereal bin, and moved through the routines of their life with a new kind of silence, not the heavy kind that had once defined her, but one she owned, one that felt like home. Noah sat at the upright piano in the living room, coaxing out a melody, a cover of a song he'd been practicing for weeks. His fingers moving with a confidence she hadn't seen before. He didn't ask what came next. And neither did she. They were figuring it out, one honest moment at a time. By Tuesday, whispers trickled in through neighbors. The kind of small-town gossip that travels faster than truth. Abigail's honeymoon was postponed, her groom needing space to process the fallout. A skincare brand she'd partnered with as an influencer quietly cancelled her contract, citing reputational concerns. Someone had leaked the audio from Noah's speech, not Sophia. But she didn't need to. Truth has a way of finding its own mouth, slipping through cracks no one expects. She didn't ask who did it. Didn't care. It wasn't her battle anymore. Margaret left a single voicemail. Her voice clipped and rehearsed. You embarrassed this family. Sophia, I hope you're proud. Sophia listened to it once, her finger hovering over the delete button before pressing it without hesitation. For the first time, Her mother's words didn't find a home inside her. Didn't carve out a space to fester. Later that night, while sorting through old receipts in a kitchen drawer, she found something else. A draft email she'd written years ago during a therapy session. Meant for Margaret. It was long, raw, part plea, part confession. A catalog of hurts she'd never had the courage to send. She read it aloud to the empty kitchen. Her voice steady, each word a release. Then she clicked delete, the screen going blank. Closure, she realized, didn't need witnesses. It didn't need Margaret's approval or Abigail's acknowledgement. It was hers to claim. A week later, Sophia sat at the back of No's school auditorium, the air thick with the nervous energy of a statewide debate contest. The topic was fitting. When speaking up isn't a choice, it's a responsibility. Noah stood at the podium, his lanky frame steady, his voice carrying the same quiet strength he'd shown on that stage in Charleston. He spoke of truth, of courage, of the cost of silence. His words weaving a story that wasn't just his but theirs. The audience clapped, teachers nodded, judges scribbled notes with approving smiles. Sophia didn't say, "I'm proud of you." She leaned close as he returned to his seat. Her voice a whisper, "You made space for truth." Noah. He nodded, his eyes meeting hers, understanding what words couldn't capture. 2 days later, a knock came at the door. Sophia opened it to find Aunt Clara standing there, her Sunday blouse slightly wrinkled, a potted orchid in her hands and a plain white envelope tucked under her arm. "I won't stay," Clara said, her voice soft but heavy. "Just wanted to leave this." The note inside read, "Some debts aren't financial. I hope this counts as interest." Sophia didn't call her, didn't invite her in, but she didn't throw the card away either. She planted the orchid by the kitchen window, where it caught the morning light, its petals unfurling quietly. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start, a small, honest gesture in a world that had offered her so few. The following weekend, Sophia and Noah walked through Cleveland Park, the sun dipping behind the pines, their shadows stretching long across the gravel path. Noah tossed a pebble into the creek, the splash breaking the quiet. "You good, Mom?" he asked, his voice soft but steady, his eyes searching hers. "Better than I've been," she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Not done, but better." They kept walking, the air cool, the world feeling a little lighter. They weren't welcomed back into Abigail's version of family, and Sophia didn't want to be. They were building their own. Brick by honest brick, a family defined not by blood but by truth. Sophia had learned something hard-won, a lesson carved from years of silence and slights. Dignity isn't in staying quiet when injustice festers. It's in knowing when to speak, when to walk away, and carrying your truth, even if no one claps. Sometimes, the people who raise you teach you more about survival than love. And sometimes, the greatest act of strength isn't shouting to be heard, it's speaking when silence has cost you everything. Noah, at 14, had shown her that, his courage a mirror reflecting her own. They weren't done healing, but they were done hiding. And that was enough for now. If this story stirred something deep inside you, drop a 1 in the comments or share where you're reading from. If it didn't sit right, tell me why. I'm here to listen. We're here to grow. Subscribe for more stories about truth, dignity, and rebuilding from the ashes of silence. More voices are coming, and they deserve to be heard.